Right, so thanks for joining us, Mick.
It's all right.
Understand you joined at Feltham Depot. If you could tell us a bit about the date and your first sort of memories of the Feltham Depot.
Yeah. Well, I first started in 1956, the day after Boxing Day, the 27th of December, 1956, and I always remember I bought a pair of ex-army boots. I think they were about 7 and 6 at the time, to work in, but the only problem was, being ex-army, they had big studs and blakies on the back, so the day I started it was a very thick frost, and walking from the Duke of York to the Loco was pretty slippery, and the boots didn't help much neither. It was like skating on Richmond ice rink. But we got down to the Loco, and they dug out the old cleaner foreman, a man called Arthur Lobb, who only had one leg. He'd lost his leg by tripping on a point handle and going underneath an engine. And he said, "Righto boys," he said, "let's get you a suit of clothes each." So we went up into this old clothing store, which was an old coach, which hadn't moved for about 30-40 years. And he gave us a suit of clothes, and then we got off. Then we expected to do something, and he rubbed on the backside, and he said, "Righto boys," he said, "let's go and find a nice warm one. It's a bit chilly to do anything today." Anyway, we got up there, and it was on an old 700 class, a black motor as we called them. And I looked at all the boiler front, and I said to my mate, "We're never going to get any idea of how this works," because there was what we thought was loads of gauges and handles and levers. But of course, looking back on it, and thank God he didn't take us on a merchant navy. So anyway, that was the start of 8 years of Feltham Loco, cleaning and firing, and eventually passing out as a driver to go on the juice when our dear old friend Dr. Beeching decided to take his saw to the railway and chop it in pieces. If only we could have him back now, we'd chop the bone. Oh, you'd have to delete that.
Not at all, not at all. So what sort of reception did you get as a cleaner, Mick? Sort of new to the railway, bit of a foreign world. What was the sort of, did you have your own room? Did you have a cup of tea in place?
Our own room? Well, the cleaners' lobby, as they called it, was next to the driver's lobby, but it was completely different. It was worlds away. There had been a window, but as cleaners do, they'd been lobbing knobs of coal at it. There was no glass in it whatsoever. So the day we started, on the 27th of November, there was the Arctic blast blowing through. And that's what we had. A table, no table, 2 benches. So if you wanted to eat, you put your food and your cup of coffee or cup of tea on the bench, sat astride the bench, and ate your sandwiches and coffee. One day, one of the wags decided to wire up the light because he'd fell out with one of the other cleaners. He decided to wire the light up to the door handle, and the door handle was the old bolt that holds the chairs down. They just whacked that through. We didn't have a lock that turn or nothing like that. Anyway, he wired up this light, turned it on, so it was all live, and there was this almighty bang and scream as the door opened, and we thought it was his mate. It wasn't. It was one of the running foremen who we found laying on number 1 road, flat on his back. You can imagine with his hair standing on end. Anyway, we made a bolt for the exit, but he was a real nice fella called Bob Shue, and if anybody knew Bob Shue, he wouldn't do anything to get you to sack at all. He just laughed it off, and it went on like that. A few years later, or a few months later, in the summer, they were re-concreting the roof. They were spraying it with concrete to strengthen it all. And me and a mate of mine, Frank Barker, we went up, and we were on the 12 o'clock shift for cleaning, and the foreman, the cleaner foreman, would give us a list of engines to clean because he was going home at 4 and we weren't finished till 8 PM at night. He said, do them. Well, I think the trick was to clean them as quick as you could. Then you could have water fights and God knows what. Anyway, we're going to have this water fight. Me and Frank got on the roof and we discovered this horrible, foul-smelling 5-gallon drum that the Irish navvies have been using for their latrine, as we put it. Anyway, we had a bloke we was up against, a bloke called Freddie Dye. Now, Fred used to come to work. His wife used to bleach his overalls. He looked absolutely beautiful. Anyway, he had Blakey's on his heels, and we were up above the sand pit, where you gain access from the shed to the pit. And we heard dear old Fred clomping through because we heard him clicking away with his Blakeys. So there we are with his 5 gallons of crap and other excrement in it. And when Fred stuck his head out, we just let him have it, tip the lot out. But what we didn't realise, it was Bob's shoe again. And this time we really thought we was at it because there's Bob going, blowing it off his nose and God knows what. We actually got suspended for 5 days for that little laugh, but we survived to carry on.
So I wondered if it's possible, Mick, if you could explain what Feltham Depot, Feltham Shed was like in the days you started, and also you've obviously started as a cleaner. What was the role of a cleaner, and can you remember the different types of locos? Because I know Feltham had quite varied locos visited.
Yeah, it's when I started at Feltham, the engines were, as you say, quite varied. And we had specialist engines there, like the humpers, which weren't operating on the hump because they got the 350s about 18 months before. So the humpers and the green tanks, as we called them, they did inter-regional movements to Neadston and Willesden and Brent. Occasionally the green tanks were used for summer excursions out of Waterloo, but the humpers, being quite a specialist tool, if you like, they really didn't do a lot of work. It was just inter-regional traction. We had the cube ones, which we called Charlies, but I know a lot of chuffernuts call them coffee pots. Why, I don't really know, but we had those. We had this one that we're sitting on, the 500s, the 800s. So there was quite a varied stable at Feltham. We had black motors, which is the 700 class. We had a couple of jumbos there. Now these didn't do 600 mile an hour, they were lucky to get to 6 mile an hour. They were used for shunting on the west end and the east end of Feltham. That was predominantly what they was used for, or they might move to go to Staines. Yeah, so there's quite a varied list there. We used to go to Reading, go from Waterloo to Ascot with a fish. Yeah, get all over.
So when you obviously started as a cleaner that you told us about, what was next in your employment? How long were you a cleaner for at Feltham? Did you then go on to become a fireman?
Yeah, I started, as I said, I started in Christmas 1956, and I was 16 in September 57. And it was then, when you were 16, you were sent to Guildford to the firing school to pass out as a fireman, to be taught how to dispose and various things on an engine. And then I passed out from there and I came back, and it was about, you then became a pass cleaner. So what that meant was that when if the foreman was short of a fireman, he'd yank you off of the cleaning job and put you in with a driver to be a fireman and do a firing duty. Mostly that firing duty would consist of shunting in the yard. You never went out on the main line. Very rarely did you go on the main line. So it was just really starting at the bottom. You know. So I did that until I was a firing vacancy came up at Feltham, and I went into what they call the dual link. That was drivers who were eventually going to go onto the electric side, the juice, and they would be in this link of their own. There's about 12, 14 of them. And actually my first driver was with a man called Les Purdy. And I said to him one day, well, my gran's called Purdy. He said, is she? Anyway, he got talking to his gran, and it turns out his gran and my gran went to school together. And how much of a coincidence is that? So, and then stayed with Les till he went on to the juice. He went to the juice at Ascot because there was a depot there. And then I progressed up the links with in number 2 link, which the work was better. You know, you didn't do any P&D, preparation and disposal in number 2 or number 1 link. And the turns were better in as much that you would go a bit further afield, Hither Green, Temple Mills, Willesden. Temple Mills was quite a nice place to go to because they just rebuilt it and reowned it, and it's the first time I saw a wagon retarder. They'd put it over the hump, and then the signalman would press a button and the wheel retarder would clamp the wheels just to slow it down. Whereas before that in Feltham Yard, where we had the humps, you had the dangerous practice of the shunter getting his brake stick, pushing it into the brake handle, and actually sitting on the handle, riding down to stop it banging into the rafter wagons that was going on. Now, normally you'd have to go to a fun fair and pay a pound a pop to have a thrill like that. This guy got it every day for free.
So, when you touched on briefly, we're obviously sat on 506 at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you have many memories of 506 or S15s in general?
Well, S15 in general, yeah. You didn't really remember specific logos unless something happened to you on it. But yeah, I mean, they were lovely engines. You know, the only thing, as I said, what happened was if you had to go to tender first, you did finish up with a really black face, and the only way you could see your mate was if he blinked and you see the white of his eyes.
So you did, obviously you were saying that you became a past cleaner.
Yep.
And you went to the school at Guildford.
Yep.
Was that actually a 70C steam shed, was it, Mick? Or was that nearby?
Well, it was actually, I don't know if many people will know the layout of Guildford at the time, but it was a wooden shed, I'd call it, a very large wooden shed that was up the bank by the road. There's a fish and chip shop that was quite famous. Everybody goes to this fish and chip shop. It was just near there, and went there for 2 weeks, learned how to become a fireman, and yeah, it was quite good. Me and Frank Barker, we went round to Weybridge from Feltham to catch the Guildford train, and when we got on the Guildford train, there was 3 or 4 Nine Elms men there, young cleaners like us, and one of them was Alan Don. Alan Don became quite infamous by having one of his feet cut off, and so did his father, and so did his brother. And strangely enough, it was the same engine on different dates that took all their feet off.
So, can you recall, after you'd done your course at Guildford and you were a past cleaner, I take you stayed a pass cleaner on completion of that course, not
Yes.
becoming a fireman at that time. So could you recall sort of one of your early trips out on the main line?
As I said before, you never really went as a pass cleaner. You were pretty much shed bound, really. You just did prep disposal, perhaps mover. The one we had at Feltham was the hopper. You'd go and be the fireman on that, and all that was simply pushing 4 wagons of coal onto the hopper to fill the hopper up. So it was just really, when you was a pass cleaner, you did very little out on the main line, because once you become 16 and you got your fireman's job, yeah, that was a different matter.
So you mentioned that earlier, when you turned 16 you became a fireman. What, just for the viewers' idea, what link did you go into when you became a fireman at Feltham?
Well, I went into the dual link, which was full of drivers that were in there. They were dual drivers. They passed out on the electrics and they passed out on the steam, and they could be utilised for anything. And they were put in the dual link until a vacancy came up at one of the depots at Ascot or Hounslow or Chertsey, or if they wanted to go to Waterloo. But that's what the dual link was.
So when you went into that dual link, how long did you remain working with steam before you moved to electric?
Well, it all come down to seniority, where there was a vacancy at one of the electric trains depots. But I stayed as a fireman, I stayed in the dual link possibly for about another year. Then I went up into number 3 link with a man called Gus Greenwood. And Gus Greenwood was a real one-off. He would open the door of the driver's and fireman's cabin. He'd have a torch lamp in one hand and his cheeks would be blown out. And you think, what the bloody hell's coming here? Anyway, he'd go, this massive sheet of flame would come out and it would be going all around the room, and he'd shut the door and run up number 1 road laughing his head off. And sad to say, poor old Gus didn't last long into retirement, and he lost his teeth pretty early for some reason. I don't know what that was. Overheating, I rather suspect. Not overeating, overheating.
So when you moved on to that link, we're obviously, as I say, sat on 506 at the minute at the watercress line. Did you, during your time on the footplate, ever come over the watercress line at all?
I did come over the watercress line, but it was very late in my firing career. It was when they shut, when they were electrifying the Bournemouth Road down to there, and they diverted a lot of traffic across the watercress line to come out when it comes out of Winchester. And I did go over there a couple of times. So yeah, but that's the only time.
Well, thanks for that. And obviously, with the end of steam sort of drawing near in '67, where did your career take you then, Mick?
Well, I was quite lucky in respect. I was married with a young baby, John. He's now a driver at Staines. And so Beeching had decided he was going to have the cuts. I was in my front garden one day and a man called Ern Channing come around the corner. Ern Channing was to do with sectional council, so he knew what was coming before anybody else did. And he called me over, he said, "I want to work with you, young Chandler. There's big changes coming to the railway." He said, "You've got a young family." He said, "I've been telling you there's a job coming up at Hampton Court on the juice. And my advice to you is to put in for it." Anyway, I did. And I got the job at Hampton Court, which might seem strange for people to realise there was a depot at Hampton Court, because it's now just a little two-line station. But I went there in '64, and I wasn't there that long. In fact, I was there for 2 weeks. because I had the first preference in for Strawberry Hill. And the first I knew about going to Strawberry Hill, excuse me, was I went to the pay office at Hampton Court. There's a booking clerk, the booking office, and I said to the booking clerk, I said, I've come to my pay, showed him the pay card. He said, well, there's nothing here for you. And I said, well, where is it? He said, I don't know, you better go back to Feltham and ask them where it is. So I went back to Feltham, expecting to get my pay, and they said, no, it's at Strawberry Hill. You've moved there, but nobody's told you. Yeah, so I went to Strawberry Hill in 1964, and I stayed there till the day I retired, and I retired a year early by preference. So I stayed there till 2005. So stayed there a long time. I finished up at Strawberry Hill in a thing called the Jurassic Link. And the reason it was called the Jurassic Links, it was six of the senior drivers. And we did the inter-depot moves for Porterbrook. It was all privatised by then, and it was really good. We went all over the place, went down to Brighton, to Lovers Walk, to Bournemouth, Ashford, and so went all over. So that was a nice finish to my career. Sort of putting us into a soft sleep, if you like, to get ready for retirement. And one day, I was asked to take a young signalman from Wimbledon to Chart Leakin in Ashford. And it turns out to be my own lad, Anthony, or Tony as he likes to be called. So he had a trip out with the old man.
Happy memories.
Yeah, it certainly was, isn't it? Anthony remembers it, or Tony remembers it.
Right, so we've now come outside Mick, and I thought we'd bring you up to these lovely freight wagons here with your connection with Feltham. Just wondered, in your own time, if you've got any stories relating to any of the freight moves that you did.
One Sunday I was sent with my driver to Basingstoke to relieve on the banana train from Southampton to Temple Meads. The idea was that I would get relief at Feltham because my 8 hours would be up by then. Anyway, on arrival at Feltham, there was just a driver standing on his own, and he explained that the fireman that should have relieved me had gone sick, but the foreman asked me if I would go up to Temple Mills and back to like to Feltham with it. So I said, yeah, okay. Anyway, we got towards Temple Mills, and we got to a signal that was at stop, and it turned out that the signalman had got fed up. He'd done his 12 hours and he was going home, so he just simply locked the box out. So anyway, the driver got on the signal phone to somebody, and they explained that we couldn't get to Temple Mills till the morning, till they'd opened the early turn signalman had come on. The upshot of it was that I actually did about 16, 17 hours. And when I got home, I was living at home then with my mum and dad at the time. And Mum said, oh, you're home, are you? So I said, yeah. She said, well, I got a bit worried about you, so I went down to the Loco to find out where you were. Well, as an 18-year-old, I wasn't very happy about that my mum was running about worried about me. I mean, I was 18 years old, I was an adult, I was a big man, wasn't I? Mummy wasn't definitely not going to run about looking for me. Anyway, I managed to live that down after a while, and everything settled down. And yeah, things carried on practically just as it was.
Right, another question for you, Mick, if I may ask. I believe there's quite a family connection with the railway in general, and not just Feltham. I wonder if you could give us a bit of information about the family connections.
Yep. My dad started on the railway. He was an apprentice plumber, and he got the sack by putting his foot through a ceiling. So he's doing a plumbing job in the attic. So he got the sack for that, and the only job available was a horse driver's job at Twickenham, and because my granddad was a horse keeper, Dad knew everything about horses. So at 16 he was given the job of a delivery man around the Twickenham area by horse and cart, which he loved. But after they did out without the horses, he moved to Feltham as a shunter. And consequently, the old man, he'd had such a good life on the railway. I went on, my brother Den went on, and my youngest brother Jeff, he went on as well. We were all on the footplate, but the other two brothers actually had to come off for medical reasons. And then my son went on, the eldest son John, who's a driver at Staines now. Our youngest son, I better call him Tony because his real name's Anthony, but he thinks that's a bit, Anthony's a bit girly like, but he goes by the name of Tony, and I expect everybody who knows him, you know him, what he is. He started on the railway. Then I had a cousin who's a driver at Bournemouth, Alan. I had an uncle at Ryde on the Isle of Wight. He was on the carriage and wagon, and because there's only one depot now on the Isle of Wight, and he retired from there. I had a cousin who was my uncle's son on the Isle of Wight, and he used to drive a thing from the Ryde Pier Head to Ryde Station called, it was like a baggage train. Actually it was really quite dangerous. It was an old Bedford lorry that they put railway wheels on, which is quite common now, isn't it? And he used to meet the boats coming in from Portsmouth, and the holiday makers in particular used to put their suitcases onto this cobbled together train, and he'd drive it from Ryde Pier Head to Ryde Station. Well, he only lasted one season. He was bored out of his skull, wasn't he, running up and down on that bit. So there's quite a few of us on the railway. My daughter Julie, she was at Waterloo as she worked on the clerical side. She worked on the booking and the telephone side. And I think that's about it. But there's quite enough of us to have a meeting of old railway employees, if you like.
But interesting, as we were walking up,
yeah,
Mick said to me, he said, we always used to dread when the foremost gave us 499, because it was a bad steamer.
She was a rough old boot, was she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could never make your mind up whether she want a light fire, heavy fire, or what. Like, she just got temperamental on the day.
Yeah.
You know. So
there's a usual thing. It's the blast pipe didn't line up. Something's leaking at the front end, an element
the
blowing.
rings out.
Yeah. The water goes down the glass quicker than anything else.
That's right.
The only thing I'll say, because we've only had experience here, but when you sort of driving them, or you're up the line, she don't pick her feet up. They just sort of just sit there and just
plod along.
Just plod it.
Yeah. There's an ideal goods engine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's all you wanted to do with a goods engine. You didn't want to sort of do any racing speeds with it.
No, she's like I said, when we got her, she was a tired old piece of kit. The actual frame had completely split behind the motion bracket. Completely, she broke her back. So what we've done, we've put new frames on from just on the centre of the leading driving wheel, went all the way forward, right to the front. So the only bit that's original is the balance. We salvaged the balance piece on there. Obviously the cylinder blocks have been refitted and the centre casting's been refitted. New buffer beam, all new plate work. So yeah, we probably got her back as near as we can get her back. Yeah, but no, we didn't know she was bad. We knew she was bad, but you didn't know we were that bad.
Well, it could have been me doing something to it then.
Well, all I know is that I've spoken to a fair few guys, and they said to me they were tired, run down. You know, they wouldn't have done another general repair. No. So she's we'll get there when we get there, sort of thing. But we've done the same. Did they tell you you've done the same repair to 506? We've given her half new frames as well.
No.
Yeah. We've done new frames, a little bit further forward, just by the cylinder block. Everything else has all been replaced exactly the same. So
the experience you had with 506.
Well, yeah, it's like a lot of things. It wasn't just the fact that the frames were cracked. the corrosion would push the cylinder blocks out. And the corrosion had got in the smoke box and started to push the frames off of the centre stretcher. So the engine was literally forcing itself apart. So, you know, and then that, and Eastleigh had put patches inside because the frames had corroded through in the smoke box.
Yeah.
So they'd had it in the early 60s.
Yeah.
You know, I think they probably got their, as I said, they had their money's worth out.
Yeah.
But no, everybody says the same, you know, just sit there and they just slog away.
Yeah, we used to get the 800s on the Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Working to Basingstoke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the trick then was to you get on the train on the engine on the Monday, and the driver would say, "Yeah, right. If you've got any big knobs of coal, throw them up the back because we want them for Saturday." So we were stuck with the dust.
Yeah. And they went under the door. I bet. Stick them
Yeah.
under the door. Yeah. No, as I said, she's been a 506 has been a good, reliable engine actually.
Yeah.
Obviously a bit biased, but it's one of the best we've got.
Oh yeah, of course.
One of the
Yeah,
best.
on the side.
Yeah. As long as you don't send us out on a flat top, he said, that's all right. Yeah.
So,
What sort of turns would you have done on 499, Mick? Just freight runs or?
yeah, purely freight runs. As I said, you know, they didn't tend to put them on the Saturday afternoon passenger jobs. We would get an 8 on that, 800. But yeah.
And I suppose as they got further and further away from having work at Eastleigh, they got rougher and rougher and rougher.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, we send the best engines out on passenger work, and
The crap goes to the front.
yeah. So as you work out of Southampton docks and work all the way up.
Did,
Yeah, because we've got quite a lot of pictures of these working like banana trains and stuff like that.
Well, that's what I was just saying back there.
Yeah.
I worked a banana train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went down to Basingstoke to relieve on this banana train
Yeah.
to Temple Mills.
Yeah.
And when we got to Feltham, there was no relief
Oh,
for
yeah.
me. There was
Yeah.
relief for the driver.
Somebody knew the road to Temple Mills from there, did they?
Yeah. So I went through with the train
Yeah.
as a fireman. And when we got to Stratford, there was the signalman he'd had enough. He'd done his 12 hours, then he decided to lock out. We were locked out with him.
Yeah. So you just had to sit there and wait for development.
Finish up doing 16, 17 hours. And when I got back to Feltham, when I got home,
Yeah.
my mum said, well, I've been down the Loco and asked where you were. I was 18,
Yeah.
you know. Asking where I am. What, my child? Wasn't very happy with mummy.
Oh yeah. Well, I suppose that's it. You just had to take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah.
And was there any smooth? Or was it all rough?
No, there was a lot of smooth, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Well,
But do you find the same? You got a good driver, a good mate,
Yeah.
and you're fine.
Oh, yeah.
You got somebody that's
Yeah.
put a chalk mark on the floor and says, "That's your side, that's mine."
That's it,
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah. No, we say here, you go out as a team, a couple of blokes, you know, and you come back. You've had a good day. It's
Yeah.
nice to say,
Yeah,
you know.
that's right.
And if it's not going too well, the driver and the follower have to work together, don't they?
Yeah.
There's no good pushing her over right and letting the gear out and just sit there.
Yeah, I did threaten to hit one driver in the head with a spiky end of the coal pit one day.
Was he giving you?
No,
Was he leathering it a bit? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that over there,
Straight out.
gear lever over there.
Yeah.
Everything was going out the chimney.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, there's the good and the bad, isn't there?
yeah, luckily enough, they were mostly good.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the bloke's with you, your driver, he'd come up the same way.
Of course, yeah.
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 And what did you say when you had them? They were brand new, mate.
Yeah. 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 The last driver I had was a man called Harry Elliott,
Yeah.
and for the first 6 weeks, he never spoke at all. And he was my regular mate in the top link.
Yeah.
And I said to my dad, I said, I'm going to bury the coal pick in his head. I said, you know, I'm getting really fed up with it. He didn't want to go to work,
No.
but the culmination of it all was we used to work a train called that was a 12:55 out of Feltham down to Basingstoke. It's quite a heavy train. And we went onto the hopper, took coal, and went and tested his injector.
Yeah.
Didn't work. So I told him, I said, we've only got one injector going, so you're going to see the foreman, and he gave us a Charlie, a Q1.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought, yeah, and we didn't get any reduction on the weight of the train, so we had the equivalent of on a Charlie what we should have had on a 500.
Yeah.
And I kept the old steam right the way over, all the way. And we got off, and he went, do you know what, Mick? He said, that's the best run I've ever had on a Charlie.
You could have fallen through the floor, could you?
Yeah, I thought, well, I better pick the culprit up, not bury it in his head now. And he was great. I had him for the next 4 years till I passed out for driving.
Yeah.
And it was really enjoyable. You know? The only thing with him, he used to bring a bottle of cold tea with him. And he'd put it in the tray above the firebox to warm up.
Yeah.
But I used to make my own tea in a can, and eventually I managed to get him out of the bottle into the can.
Well, we've all done the same things. The tea's on there, and the old regulator stuffing box is dripping a bit.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's put a nice flavour in it.
Yeah, you wonder why you finish up with a can full when you get where you're going.
That's right. Yeah. No, I think it's the camaraderie-ship, if that's the word, on the footplate, and if you haven't got it, you might as well not bother.
Yeah, no, that's right.
I mean, we've all taken the mickey out of somebody saying, the tide gone out and things like that.
Yeah, couldn't boil a kettle.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the other one. Is here I got some fire lighters. Any good to you?
Yeah.
No, it's people that haven't been on a steam engine don't see the empathy between the men, the engine. No,
that's right.
And there is an
empathy. Yeah.
Some people got it, some people haven't.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I know that when I started on the railway, there was about 10 of us started within a couple of months.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I was the only one left. Yeah. Everybody had gone.
Yeah. Well, got better paid jobs, no shift work, I suppose.
No shift work. I think that was a thing. Like, particularly if they were getting married.
Yeah.
Wives didn't want them out all times of the day.
No. Yeah. Well, it's a changed world out there now, isn't it?
Crikey, yeah.
I mean, I don't go on the railway very much, but when I do, it seems completely alien, because this here is how even I remember it.
Yeah, of course.
And you're living in the past,
which
in some ways is not a bad thing.
No, it's not at all.
So, just one more question for you, Mick, and I know you touched on it earlier, and I fully understand it was probably just another day, but you mentioned earlier that you did work over the Watercress line on an occasion during the electrification excursions. Do you remember much about it?
Not really. It was just just another day, really. I've never been on the Watercress line before. I found out why it was called the Watercress line, and basically that's it. Went over it a couple of times during the electrification. It really only came to prominence to me when it became a preserved railway. And it seems such a shame that it don't go to Winchester and pop out the other end like it used to.
Yeah, well, if it has, we wouldn't be here now, would we?
That's the thing.
Yeah, but I don't know about you, but everybody that's been on an engine here, a bridge at Medstead, it might be what it's officially called, but we've always known it as Thank Christ Bridge. We got there.
Yes, being over it, I can understand.
Every single day, Dad.
If things ain't going to gain, it's a long way up. If things are going swimmingly, it's not a problem.
You wish it was going the other way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we used to have grub at Reading.
Yeah.
At the old Reading depot, which was down below the Western.
Oh yeah.
And quite often you'd see the Western bloke coming by, and he'd go pop, pop, pop on the whistle. He'd wave the tea can out, and the signalman put the signal back on, and they'd stay there for about 20 minutes making the tea. Yeah. Oh, we could never do that. No, get the bloody sack.
Yeah.
That's my eldest son.
Yeah.
He's a driver at Staines, a driver instructor.
So you've got a bit of family
Yeah.
Yeah, you were. Any generation go back when you were on the railway, or you?
Yeah, my dad.
Really?
Yeah, he started as a horse cart driver at Twickenham when they had horses. Then they went to the mechanical horse. You know, the other little
Yes, the
three-wheeler.
scarabs. Yeah.
He took them and he finished up as a guard at Feltham during the war.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I think railwaymen are like farmers. It isn't a job; it's a way of life. That's how I, you know. Yeah. You're either in or you're out. There isn't much.
Yeah. No, there's no in between.
No.
No.
No. Well, I got no family connection with the railways whatsoever.
Yeah.
No, nothing at all. No. I just sort of. I was about 4 or 5, and railways were kind of interesting, and we lived at Burwood. We used to go to either Salisbury or Poole.
Yeah.
And it all seemed rather nice and interesting and everything else, and I could sit there for ages. Not I was allowed to. It was come on, get a move on, you know, all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that gets in your blood.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, when this place was starting to be mooted, it was going to open up, or they're going to try and open it up. I sort of came up here on my motorbike, and 40 odd years later, I'm still here.
The rest is history.
That's the one. Yeah. But I've worked with some really worked with some decent guys, not just footplate staff, but you've some decent people. You know, it's a bit of, it becomes a bit of way of life in the end. You know?
Yeah, that's right.
If you're having a really rough week at work, you can think, well, weekend's coming, I can be doing that up there. You know, sort of switch off. You know.
Yeah.
So what's it left at Feltham now then?
What's left?
Yeah. Load of waste ground and.
No, they built this new depot there.
Oh, it's on the same site, is
That's
it?
Yeah. Well, it's not on the same site as the old Loco was.
No.
It's coming towards the station or the town.
Yeah.
But it's quite a lot of it there. Yeah. But it's very pristine at the present. When I walked up into the mess room there, I thought, well, this is how it should look.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, this is a bit real, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you know, I dare say you could say, I mean, conditions, most of the running sheds and everything else was pretty rough, wasn't it?
Oh, cross, yeah.
Yeah. So sorts the men from the boys. Yes.
Yeah, I was saying
those
earlier,
are a nervous disposition.
Yeah. We had a door there at one point. And there was no doorknob or anything like it. It was the old chair bolt.
Oh yeah.
Driven through the wooden door. The last time it was in steam was in '64. You said was it 64?
No, last days of '63.
Last '63.
Yeah, it was withdrawn. I think early January '64. And as I said, she had a broken frame. They just swapped the tender off of late 30s, one of the 800s, the 6-wheelers.
Yeah.
They nicked her tender. They nicked her tender. They go on with one that had a 6-wheel tender.
Cool.
Yeah.
Question is, Mick,
So
was it because of you? Was it? Did you break it?
I think many's tried, but nobody succeeded. I think. Yeah. It's a driver's responsibility, isn't it? Or were you driving then? Were you driving then?
No, I was still a fireman.
Oh, then. That's all right. Yes, you're in the clear then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just coming up to going driving.
Yeah.
But no.
So you sort of missed perhaps the glory days that you had the sort of like the fag end, did you? A little bit of driving.
Well, I did 8 years on the shovel before I went on the juice.
Yeah.
So I started at 15 and passed out for driving when I was 23. So I did had quite a bit of the rough.
Yeah.
You know. But it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't say I got out of bed and thought, oh, I don't want to go to work. You know, it was always wanted to go there. Yeah. Yeah, when I got married, I bought my wife a washing machine, so Mum didn't have to do my overalls.
That was the best money you ever spent.
Yeah. But there was 3 of us on the railway. There was 4 of us. There was my dad, and there was me, then my younger brother Dennis, and then our youngest brother Jeff. They were all on the railway. My dear old mum, she used to have to make sandwiches for all of us. So she used to have a bowl over one lot with my name on it, a bowl on another lot with Dad's name on it, and then she'd have a break because the other 2 were late turn, like, you know. And this is the thing that's forgotten about the railway. It's the families behind you that get you up and get you going.
Well, it's the same.
You know?
It's the same as, you know, my wife lets me come up here.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody would.
No.
She don't let you go home though, does she?
No, no. Well, I think it's one of those things that if you're up here, they know what you're up to. If you're somewhere else, they don't know what you're up to.
That's right. So I bet she says to you, well, why do you come home drunk some days when you're up there? Throwing grease about.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, those are the days, yeah. Well, we won't record too much of that, I don't think. I mean, what you used to be able to get away with and have a few beers now, you wouldn't even dream of it. Wouldn't even think about it. Yeah.
Well, we used to have a local at Feltham. It was called the Duke of York.
Yeah.
And the foreman used to have a direct line in there. Have you got Mick Chandler in there or Fred Brown?
Send him back.
Send him back.
Yeah.
And you stagger back there. You got to square a couple of inches up.
Yeah.
Soon sobered you up.
So sweaty you out,
that's right.
I don't know about you, but that's about the worst job on any bloody engine is having to clean the bloody grate and chuck it out. Yeah, bloody
I thought the drop grate was a great invention.
It is. Yeah. It is. We tried to put one on these, but there's not enough depth.
Enough room.
Well, you've got the brake rigging in the way.
Yeah.
And you've got an axle, and it's very difficult to try and do anything. You know, and we have
Squeeze
tried.
It in there.
Yeah, it's not designed for it. But yeah, I know the old standards, and just rock the old lever and down it goes.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So anyway, well, we just plod on with this one, and when we get her running, we'll give you a shout, mate.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Cheers, mate.
Nice firm grip there.
Yeah.
Being Feltham, did you ever get out on the West Countries? Or?
Oh yeah.
You did, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, got on them all. Yeah.
So you recommend them on a nice July day when it's about 100 in the shade and
Yes. You go and come off 6 stone lighter.
Yeah. On a hot day, they can't be better, can they?
Can you remember the, again it might be just because it was another day, but can you remember what class of loco was your last fire into?
Can't really say. No. You know, it's one of those things that you just drifted over. You know, you drifted over from steam, then we had the Cromptons at Feltham. Yeah. And then I left, you know, so then I was on the electrics all the time. But I wasn't one of these. You get lots of guys who they've got a notebook and they'll even put what sort of coal they had and everything, like, you know. You ever met Jimmy Lester? Yeah, no, Jimmy. Yeah. I mean, Jim's got a book for everything, like, you know. Yeah. You could name a day today and say, well, what did you do on that day, Jim? And he'd go, there you are. That's what I did. And really, thank God there are people like that. Yeah. Because there's a lot of history tied up in what they dropped down, isn't there? You know.
Oh yes, yeah.
Even down to the sort of coal they had, you know.
I don't know about you, but there's 2 days you remember. You remember the ones that weren't so good and the ones that were very good, and in the middle there's a lot of stuff you can't remember.
Yeah.
So rewording the question slightly, and I know it was just a job and it was every day, but was there a particular loco that you thought, I'm going to have a good day on this?
There's a couple of Charlies, C11, she was good, enjoyed working on her, you know. And there was a little 177, we used to push the coal trucks onto the hopper at Feltham. She was a nice little tool, right, you know. Didn't go too far on it, it was mostly in the yard. But the reason I used to like it, there was a nice old driver on it, and his name was Chandler. No relation.
So Mick, you've enjoyed your day around the watercress line, you've been in the sheds, you've been through the carriage shed, you've been up to the boiler shop. What do you think?
All right, you're doing a wonderful job, yeah. And really, you need to. I know you're successful, but I'm sure you could be more successful than you are.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Set the targets high and aim.
Yeah, because you've got such a range of not only machinery but knowledge that can come here and not only do your own work, but I can see that you do work for other railways. And all credit to you.
Thanks, mate. We really appreciate that, and that's that's not directed at the Uri Group, that's directed at the whole family, because the Watercress line is a family. We've got volunteers, I prefer to call them unpaid staff, and we've got paid staff. And there's a real mix of people, but they all aim high. We've all got the one goal. The railway is far more important than any single one of us. But look, I just wanted to say a big thanks to you for coming up. We're the actors, whether we're working in the background on the things, we're about driving, whether we're on the stations. In the main, we haven't done it before. We weren't there in the day.
No.
It's people like yourself that is so important to Heritage Railways.
It's nice of you to say so.
Well, you are, you know, and you've taken the time to come along and share your story with us. And I'm going to say it now, I really appreciate Matt Bentley behind the camera there doing all this as well. But without you, we wouldn't know really what happened back in the day. And that's what Barry that you've been talking to will tell you drives us. You know, we enjoy doing it, we have a laugh, but the drive is to create as best we can what it used to be. So people like yourself coming along and sharing your story. You've come to talk to the Uri Group. We're just a small part of the Watercress line. From the whole family, from the chairman of both boards, right through to all the paid staff, unpaid staff, and our visitors. Can I just say thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you.
And when 499 is running, come back as our special guest. Get yourself on the body. You will.
Of course, I nearly went with it. You'd have to tell my wife I've been cremated.